those of you who don't know me, my name is Dan Cowie, and I'm the branch chairman in Houghton and Sunderland South, one of our 3 Wearside branches. Like Michael and Owen before me, I'd like to say a few words about Charlie Kirk and his brutal killing. Now, I want to start by saying that Kirk was a figure who, in my journey into politics, was always kind of on the periphery. I'll never claim to have been his biggest fan. I never watched his content religiously. But when I first got into politics at the age of 14 or 15, when I was in secondary school, and I started watching things online and I started trying to develop opinions myself, Charlie Kirk and Turning Point was always something that would appear every now and then in the recommended section. And even up until he died, whenever I'd go on YouTube or X or what have you, Charlie Kirk and Turning Point would always be something and someone who I'd return to every now and then. He was a true believer in the marketplace of ideals and free speech and debate. I'd occasionally stumble upon a new video of him debating at a college or university. And the reason why, like I said, I kept going back to him is because he did politics properly, peacefully and respectfully. That's the way it should be done. In the days since Charlie's murder, there's been a great commotion in political circles, particularly online. Millions of voices crying, shouting over each other. And some were, and perhaps still are, as the information is released every day, preemptively grasping at straws to figure out who to blame or what dirt to sling at each other, as usually happens with drama online. But I'm not here to address who's to blame or to throw dirt at anyone else like it's been happening online. I just pray that justice can be done. But amongst those millions of voices, this is what I want to talk about. Amongst those millions of voices, there are many, many people who are celebrating, who are cheering on what happened. We've got to remember here, folks, when we take the politics out of it, that this man was a father and a husband. He wasn't always out there debating on college campuses. He wasn't always out there disagreeing with people. He was just an ordinary man like the rest of us. His only crime, in the eyes of those who killed him, was that he was a Christian conservative. That there is such jubilation in his murder is deeply reprehensible and must be met with the fiercest of condemnation. The cheerful captions, which I'm sure we've all seen, and the laughing emojis that we've seen as the video of his final moments showed round, disgustingly, this is pure evil, and it cannot be tolerated. But I must know, who is it that's celebrating this? Who is it that's cheering on his death? Who thinks it's a good thing? Who are the people in the crowd who were leaping up with glee when that bullet hit him in the neck? Well, it's the radical left. And it's not just the mysterious boogeyman that exists online or that we talk about as an abstract. Look at the people who are celebrating this online. Musicians, media commentators, online influencers, academics. Perhaps more sinisterly is the people that we thought were normal who are cheering this on. People who we just thought were ordinary left-wingers. And we see millions of them online celebrating, cheering this on, sharing memes around of his death. In my own personal experience, me and my friends have just had to cut off a lad that we knew for 11 years because him and his girlfriend went on Facebook less than an hour after Charlie was declared dead with a song saying Charlie's in a box. These people cannot be debated with. Unfortunately, many more of these sorts of people than we realise live amongst us. Indeed, it is people with beliefs such as those on the hard left, that Kirk had in his life bested time and time again in debate. And that is why they hated him. It will be his legacy that he was virtually undefeated in debate at every college campus that he went to. The one man who, amidst all the chaos, tension, and recent violence, because it wasn't just his murder that's been happening in the US, but amongst all that chaos, he was the one man who made it his life goal to speak to the other side, to reason with the other side, and now he has been silenced forevermore. In speaking about this, it's not my intention, as some perhaps may argue, to dishonour him or exploit his death for political purposes. I believe that we must speak plainly, we must be honest, and we must be decisive. For years, the radical left across the US, the UK, and the wider West have been unchallenged in their demonising and vilification of their opponents to absurdity. It begins with labelling one's opponent as a fascist, perhaps even a Nazi, certainly a racist. Here in the UK, they're a bit more creative. They might call you a gammon or a flag shagger. And they'll continue with this vague rhetoric until us thought criminals are unwelcome. The narrative continues that we must be thrown out for any means necessary. They will call for their local Nazi to be punched, to be assaulted, to be chased out wherever we wish to engage in dialogue. Certainly Charlie Kirk in his lifetime, whenever he went to a campus, he'd always see a bunch of masked up anarchists or leftists of some sort chasing him out, or calling for him to be punched or assaulted. This is not freedom of speech, this is not debate, folks. What does that rhetoric lead to? What do all those names lead to? Well, they culminate in the deaths of people like Charlie Kirk. Recently, I saw online, just in the past week, a banner being held by so-called anti-fascist protesters saying, "Eat the gammons." Now, it sounds funny on the surface, but when you think about what else they've been saying, one need not wonder the implications being made. What happened 5 days ago is where that all leads. It leads to men with different opinions, innocent family men, beloved by their family, yet loathed by their political opponents, being gunned down for the entire world to see. Even in their insincere facades of sympathy, many left liberal commentators still felt the need to backhandedly caveat their rest in pieces online with assertions that Charlie Kirk was a vicious racist, a fascist, and a bigot. If this is to be accepted as normal, what does the future of politics hold for us in reform? As many of you will recall, 5 years ago during the COVID pandemic and at the height of the lockdowns, George Floyd's death unleashed a wave of rioting and violence by the Black Lives Matter movement, not just across the US, but across the UK and parts of Europe as well. Entire cities in the US were turned into anarchic scenes that might perhaps envisage belonging to the Purge movies rather than civic life in a healthy democracy. Indeed, our own reformed politicians in the UK have suffered violence and violent threats recently, be it milkshakes to the face or the thousands of TikTok videos calling for Farage to get the Charlie Kirk treatment. It's self-evident that in a healthy and effective democracy, the realm of politics is peaceful and free of violence. Yet seemingly this belief is only now held by one side, or majority by one side, of the political divide. We are increasingly seeing violence being enacted against people with beliefs such as ours, with beliefs such as Charlie's. We wish to see a Britain similar to what I imagine he wished to see the United States, a nation that respects and defends its borders, a nation that celebrates its identity, its culture and its heritage, and rewards those that follow the law and work hard. Yet chillingly, many of our opponents, what they want is to see us dead. Political discourse, when it is not peaceful, is no longer discourse. When you build up a narrative that your political opponents are Nazis and fascists that must be crushed at all costs, you have declared war, the most dreadful of all wars, what the great philosopher Thomas Hobbes would call a war of all against all. It has become increasingly clear that many amongst the far left no longer wish to hold restraint. Their violence, their threats, and their jubilation at the sight of violence is a dark cloud which is looming over our democracies. When an entire portion, perhaps even half of it, is willing to shatter all the norms and customs which we in the West have developed over centuries of bloodshed in order to avoid bloodshed, then I fear for the future of this country. But despite that fear, folks, I believe we've got to carry on. Charlie faced crowds every day who were overwhelmingly hostile to him and his ideas, as college and university campuses tend to be. But he continued. He built Turning Point and the wider conservative movement into something many thought it could never be. I recently saw an interview, it was just before his death, where he said that had you told him in the early 2010s that the youth would be majority Republican vote in the US, he wouldn't have believed it. That's the progress that he made in Turning Point. He challenged ideas and changed minds, not through violence, but through dialogue and resoluteness in his beliefs and his faith. We must embody the ideals of Charlie Kirk in facing our political opponents. Without fear, we must continue the cause for which he fought, a cause which I believe to be identical to this party's. We must not be deterred, intimidated, or cowed by the threat of political violence. We're not going anywhere. Let this be a true turning point. Let us start today to live the way Charlie did.